Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I am a Filipino-American artist and cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And right now I'm participating in a group art exhibition in Chopsticks Alley Art Gallery in downtown San Jose, California. And today I'll be talking to two other fellow artists who are also participating in our group art exhibition, Tanya Momi and Phillip Hua. Is that right? Okay. Okay. And let me tell you a little bit about both. Tanya was born in India and she graduated with a BFA from Chandigarh. Is that how you pronounce that? In 1982. She came to America, and after divorcing her husband, she raised two kids and established her own business in Silicon Valley in 1989. During that time, she stopped painting for 22 years, but she was encouraged by her friends to start painting again. She has a salon, Spoil Me Salon, in Mountain View, California, and that's also her art gallery. And she uses that art at her salon and gallery as a haven where she keeps her art, culture, and beauty alive. Tanya has spoken at the White House about women's empowerment and leadership. She has shown her work in India, Beverly Hills, New York, Washington, D.C., Canada, London, Hong Kong, Munich, Switzerland, Sothesbys Realty. Am I pronouncing that right? Sothesbys Realty, the Triton Museum, the Crocker Museum, the NUMU Museum, and many others and stuff. Phillip Hua is a San Francisco-based artist who was born and raised in San Jose, California. He graduated from the Academy Art University. His work has been exhibited both locally and internationally in galleries, art fairs, and museums. Phillip has created public art in San Francisco, Sunnyvale, Davis, San Mateo, Palo Alto, and Oakland. His clients include the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, the SFMTA, BART, and the U.S. State Department. Both of you have very impressive resumes, and I'm very honored to talk to you both. Thank you both.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here and being shown at the Chopstick Alley.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I guess the first thing, can you tell me a little bit about the portrait art that you have right now at the gallery?
Sure. It's called Whisper. The Whisper is they say seven women who are faceless and they're sitting in a circle, and the room is kind of dark and you don't see their faces, and then but the door is open. There's a deep message behind that. So you don't know who's listening behind that door. So they're whispering, and they do have a plan to get out, or they're helping or supporting each other. And then that's what the painting is about. But what it relates to me, when I came to United States, it was arranged marriage. I arrived in '83 and I lived in Santa Clara. And I was married to youngest of six children, and my in-laws came with me from India. And here I grew up in a very liberal household, where my father is a writer and a journalist, and we went to the best schools, and we grew up in a stage. Art and culture was part of our daily living. So we were not shy about how to be, being especially born in India and four girls. A lot of time the parents are they have to think what other people are thinking, or we were culturally behind. We were not. We were very advanced at that time. So when coming to this U.S., my in-laws made sure that I covered my head, and they took my passport and a green card, that I'm not allowed to talk to anybody or go or leave the house without their permission. So what that painting is, being indoor for me, the doors were shut. For me to open the door, go out was a really, they really put a fear in my head, because my family lived in Canada and I was by myself in the United States. So for living in that terror for 9.5 years and didn't paint for 22 years, all these emotions were sitting deep inside me. So these paintings are, since I knew how to draw, these women wasn't sitting there for me, but that was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I was whispering inside my own home, where the other person was listening from the telephone. My ex-husband made sure there was two phones, but my parents called. They didn't know there was a person listening. So for those traumatic experiences for me, let the art start coming. And that's what the painting is called, Whisper. And I needed to break and get out of that dark environment. So the second painting, Whisper 2, is they're sitting happily outdoor.
Oh, it's like breaking free. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. How about you, Philip?
My works are portraits, and they came from a series called Past Future Tense, and they came out of a time when I was teaching art to some kids at a community center. Previously, my work is typically images of nature with stock indexes in the background, and using a variety of different processes, I would um, develop these images. And I'd been doing lots of nature images for a while. So I just, like all artists, we want to experiment and explore. And so when I was teaching kids art to these kids, we were doing self-portraits. And so to help them, I took photos of them and gave it to them to draw from. And so here I had all these photos of, young children, and I started thinking about them and their relationship to how I feel about my own childhood. And I was thinking about how this concept of childhood takes on a different temporal quality, how we view it in a sense of time.
Yeah.
And when we think about children, if we think about ourselves, it takes on this quality of the past.
Yeah.
And yet, if you think about children externally, outside of us, they can also represent the future. So here you had children embodying these different qualities of time. They could either be the past or they could be the future, depending on how you relate to that concept. So I was just exploring that, and I created a bunch of these images, and it was just another way to explore my medium with a different subject matter.
Oh, cool. Cool. Have you seen, there's a movie coming that just came out, Past Lives, about, different stages of life and stuff. Have you seen that yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. It's a good movie and stuff. Or if you like sappy movies, it's a good movie. Tanya, if you like sappy movies, you should watch it too. It's a Korean American movie and stuff. It just came out
Wonderful.
and stuff.
Thank
So
you.
I'm curious, did both of you know Tammy before you did this exhibit? How did she contact you? I'm just curious.
So Heidi had an interview with her, and then
Oh,
from there he's a friend of mine, and then she did a Zoom interview about my art, and then she had found, I was discovered, and then we just became good friends. And she's such a true gem, since you just brought up Trami, but
yeah,
she had started the platform. I think there's no such platform like her, and she really treats the artist with so much dignity, respect, and love, and what she does for artists. She's such a great role model. I'm really touched, but the way the way our show's been handled and the way she treated us on the opening, and
yeah.
it's just tickles my heart.
Oh, cool.
I'm
Yeah,
very
I
grateful
couldn't agree
for
more.
her.
She's such a great person and a force for promoting Asian art in uh, the Bay Area. And I don't remember exactly how or when I first met her, but I do remember she reached out to me, and she did a studio visit, came by and looked at the work, and she's just been really great to work with. And yeah, I think she's a great boon to the art scene in the Bay Area, and especially in San Jose, where I grew up in San Jose, and it suffers as the in the shadow of bigger cities. So
Yeah,
it's nice to
especially
have,
San Francisco.
especially San Francisco, and so
Yeah,
to
we have
have
sort of
her.
an inferiority complex.
Exactly, exactly. So it's great to have, her helping to promote artists in a city outside of San Francisco.
Oh,
So
I
cool.
agree with you
very grateful to her.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I described a little bit about your backgrounds and stuff, but could you describe a little more about your backgrounds and just how did you guys, both of you, become interested in art?
Um, would you like to, Philip, you want to go first? Then I'll go second.
Sure. I've always sort of drawn as a child. My parents were immigrants, and so we didn't really have a lot of money. And my brother and I, when we were kids, we spent a lot of time together. He's 2 years older than me, and we were always playing together and being kind of competitive with each other. And we'd play little drawing games,
Oh,
and we'd be like, you draw a horse, and so he'd draw a horse and I draw a horse, and then we'd compare who was better. We were always sibling
who was better?
rivalries.
Was it? It turned
Oh,
out to
well,
be you.
clearly it was me. He would disagree, but he's also very creative. He's a chef, but he also has a creative spark in him, and he still draws on the side, but just not professionally or anything.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
but I growing up in the an immigrant household, it was sort of expected that you would do something that was very practical. So I have lots of doctors, lawyers,
Oh,
engineers, and business people in my family, and so I was a little scared to come out as an artist.
oh, yeah, yeah,
So I for in my uh, high school years, I took some art classes just for fun.
yeah.
Um, but secretly I was always very creative, and I wanted to sort of pursue that, but I wasn't confident that I would be supported or wanted, uh, have that as a viable option. And so I after I graduated, I decided to go to community college, De Anza, actually. De Anza Community College, just as a way to be practical. If I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, that would be a great way to save money. And also just, I wasn't sure exactly. And
Oh,
I took an art class in community college, and I had this teacher who kind of looked at my work, and she said to me, you know, you should do this.
oh,
And it was kind of the encouragement that I needed, somebody to believe in me because I wasn't sure I believed in myself.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I then, after that class, I started looking into art schools, and I
Oh,
found the Academy of Art college back then, now university.
where is
And
that?
I looked into what I was interested in, and I was interested in drawing and painting and fantasy
Oh,
games, and so I was actually thinking about going into gaming and book illustration.
oh,
Uh, so I decided to look into that and apply to that, and thankfully my parents were supportive. My mom more so than my dad. My dad was sort of more quiet about it. It's like, okay, sort of
yeah.
resigned to it. He wasn't gonna force me to do something else, but he was supportive enough.
Oh, cool.
But I was thankfully very supported by my mom, and she's still my biggest supporter these days. So,
Oh,
so I applied to the Academy of Art, taking 3 years of drawing and painting representationally.
yeah.
And then when I graduated, or the last years of my school time, I started feeling like, well, what if I just want to try something different? And so I took an abstract painting class and
Oh,
started taking more fine art classes. And so by the time I graduated, I sort of had two portfolios, one that was geared towards gaming and illustration of drawing and painting and representational imagery and
yeah.
fantasy. And then this other portfolio of just abstract work, mixed media, and so it's like these two different uh, bodies of work, and I was just sort of trying to decide which to pursue. And then for a while, I kind of tried to pursue both, and then I sort of thought to myself, if I don't do this, if I don't pursue fine art, I feel like I would regret it.
Yeah.
So, I just decided I can always fall back on illustration and the gaming world. And so I just started pursuing fine art opportunities. And that sort of, I looked into it. I did my research galleries, and the whole process of being a, a fine artist. And after a while, I mean, I just sort of stayed on that path for so long. It was very difficult at many points because, it's not a very stable career path. And,
Yeah.
it's feast or famine, and more times than not, it's famine. But, I kind of just stuck with it. And I'm kind of glad I did because, I'm now, you know, fully supporting myself with just doing art. And I think it's just a matter of tenacity, just sticking with it. And I feel like one of the biggest things for the artists is that, so many just start to give up after a while when they don't get immediate success. There's this romanticized notion that you'll suddenly become an artist and make millions of dollars and be in museums and galleries right away. And when that doesn't pan out in a few months or years even, people just start giving up. And I really think that the people who stick with it and, develop their craft and meet, you know, other artists and gallerists, and you just have to keep networking and just pursuing your craft and always, improving yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you end up being successful as an artist.
Yeah. Wise words. I was curious about where is the institute at? Is it in San Francisco that you went
It's
to?
at the Academy of Art University, not the Institute.
Oh, the
But it's
academy
in
is
San
that
Francisco.
in San Francisco?
Yeah, they have
Oh, okay.
multiple locations in downtown, but kind of all over San Francisco.
Oh, okay. 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 Oh, how about you, Tanya?
So my journey is opposite.
Oh,
In India, we lived because my parents have migrated. In 1947, the partition happened. So over 20 million people are uprooted, 2 million are killed. So my grandparents and parents who were living, that was part of India, became Pakistan. So for they have to migrate, and they were refugee in their own country. So they, whatever the city or places they could leave or find homes, they settled very close to the border. So we were very close to the border of Punjab. So when I was a child, there's 3 wars happened, with 2 with Pakistan, 1 with China. And I remember I was 5 years old, and then the war broke out. And I remember next morning there's sirens and bombs and shellings and God knows, as a child, that's what I noticed, what I experienced. And then we had to leave town. That it was so bad that they had to break a bridge so they don't take over the town.
Yeah.
So as a 5-year-old experiencing that traumatized me, that there's no safe place on this earth. And these men who started a war. So I started drawing. So I would just draw on my own and just escaping from that. As a 5-year-old, the parents, we were saved. Nothing happened to me, nothing traumatic, but it's watching, just like a movie. This, remember those sirens and the shelling and the guns and the tanks, and you hearing all on the. At that time, it was the radio. You hearing nothing but nothing positive as for a child, because everybody's sitting and listening what's going on, and the announcement was you have to leave town. So everybody leaves town, and that is my memory of. And then we left that town because of the third war. We were living in Chandigarh because that was away from the border. And so from there, from being a child, I started drawing, and that was my escape. And I'm a third girl from out of 4 daughters. My father's a writer and a journalist, and I just lived in my own little, in my own shell or world as a child. And then when it came to do a college, and my dad said, what you wanna study? And I said, I want to go to art college. And Chandigarh had one of the best art college at that time. And my dad said, okay, let's go. So for my journey is different, because my escape from this world is art. And that's what, but then my own life had went to, my childhood was fine till I got married and went to a very tragic, dark period in my life, which I didn't paint for 22 years. And that's when everything was just suppressed inside me. And I had to raise 2 children and run my business. And that's when the friends started, they said, you do beautiful work. They started giving me canvas and paint for gifts, for birthday gifts, because they could see I was very talented. But I never talked about my art. I never talked about what life I lived, who I was. I just became a single mother with 2 children and a business owner. And one Christmas Eve, a friend of mine, she said, I'm coming over to bring you a Christmas gift. And but she said, I'm bringing in a van. I'm like, now I'm more curious. And she's playing this with me, correct? And she's saying, I can't tell you. I said, tell me, you don't need to bring me any. It's a Christmas Eve, right? So she comes over and she brings me an easel.
Oh, cool.
So she knew deep down that I had because she has given me, everybody was giving me art supplies. But then, art supplies, but without, so next morning, Christmas morning, I lived in Los Altos, I put a tablecloth in my living room and started painting. Kids were still asleep. And I painted 4 paintings.
Oh,
And from there, I painted 100 paintings a year.
wow. Yeah. It sounds like for both, okay, for you, Tanya, your friends was a major influence in you persevering. For you, Philip, it was the Dianza teacher who was a major inspiration in you going on to do your art, right, and stuff. It seemed like there was a turning point where somebody was there to help you decide, I'm going to do my art.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was the same thing for me. It was my friend, the Liebermans, and my wife, there was a time you were saying about perseverance, Philip. There was a time I felt like I was a failure in my art and stuff. And then when things happen, they happen in bunches, right? I don't know if that's true with both of you, but for me, there's these dead periods where nothing's happening and you feel like nothing's, is anything going to happen? Then there's this weird period where like everything seems to happen all at once, right? I don't know. Is that true with both of you?
Yes, correct. Right now, since I didn't paint for 22 years, I didn't know anything what was going on in the world. It was only being focused as a single parent. And right now,
Okay.
I'm going through the dry spell right now. Because
Yeah.
I'm noticing a lot of the art world is very unfair. A lot of the artists, they don't produce work, they produce stories and they're stealing content, and they're not trained artists. And I'm
Yeah.
noticing they are the one who's selling and getting all, they figured out art market. Where the real artists, we like to be on a really creating artwork, not going through uh, this commercial part that, oh, I figured this out, this I could do this, or I have a friend who could help me with this is a different spell. So I'm going through a dry spell right now. My only show is with right now is with Chopstick Alley. So I'm hibernating, I'm working on new series, but it's sad to see where the art world is going on right now. There's the artists, you never know, they're selling for millions and millions of dollars. The art world has it. I'm seeing a little uh, underworld. There's some money laundering going on. There's a lot of stuff. I'm reading ArtNet, a lot of articles, and I'm educating myself. It's very
Oh,
disappointing for the true master artist.
oh, okay. I didn't know that actually. So, okay. This will be a surprise to you, but there's only 7 minutes for this first meeting. Let me ask you just something quick and stuff. Who, that maybe you can answer in 7 minutes. Who are your artist heroes, and how did those art heroes influence your art?
I'll answer this short and quick. I do not have any artist heroes. I
Oh,
my own inspiration, my own gift. To me, art is a true pain, suffering, and a true life which you live and then you express. You have the art. Because my father is a writer. He said, "Why don't you write?" I said, "Dad, writing is hard. Painting is easy." And my father is not a biased. He would say, "Your art is wonderful." He said, "Your art is very deep and meaningful." When I did the partition series, I did not experience partition. But what I heard from my grandparents, my parents, I painted 15 paintings, and I used gauze for their painting to show to 20 million people sorrow and suffering. So art is not in, so all my five styles are my own styles. My
yeah,
cubism is my own style, you can see, which
yeah,
is Lord Ganesh. Then I do figurative work, which is realistic figurative work. Then I do abstract. Then I do social realism. What is
yeah,
going on this planet at this point? Abortion rights. I did men protesting for abortion rights.
yeah.
Then women don't go back. And then the spirituality. Art is meditation. When I stand in front of that canvas, the canvas and I become one, and that is what channels through me. And this, I don't have to copy anybody, study anybody. To me, it's a gift, and I'm here to give that gift. And if somebody accepts it, fine. If not, but I'm not going to. Nobody's going to stop me. So
Okay.
thank you. Now, Philip, you go tell your story.
As far as artist heroes, it depends on, there's artist heroes that I see as the ones who are successful and how they got successful.
Yeah.
And so for those, it'd be like Andy Warhol and Yayoi Kusama. So
Oh,
artists who um, were commercially successful. And that's one way where you look at an artist and say, wow, how did they get so successful, and what did they do,
yeah.
and how they were able to straddle this line of commercialism as well as sticking to their concept. So those two artists I look at as far as like they did a great job being a successful artist commercially.
Yeah.
I also like for other artist heroes, I look at people who explore form and concept as artist heroes, and for those, I'm interested in Chao Xiao which is a Chinese brush painter,
Oh,
and formally just really adept at painting, um, so with such brevity and such skill.
yeah.
I also like Jacob Hashimoto, who's a sculptor, and he does really intricate artworks with little tiny kites. It sort of straddles this line of sculpture and wall works.
Yeah.
Andy Warhol for his interest in ephemeral earth art. And then Yuken Teruya, who is this Japanese artist. He had this series called Notice Forest, and it's him taking these commercial bags, kind of like McDonald's bags, Louis Vuitton bags, and he would cut them out and create really intricate dioramas inside
Oh,
the bags. So they're like these bags that you look at on the inside, and he's cut it out from the top and formed it into a little tree. And so it
oh,
becomes this like this commentary on nature and commerce, which is the themes that I explore too. So
oh, okay.
I have lots of different artists heroes depending on whether it's who to look at in terms of ideas
Yeah.
and what they're thinking about, and then artists who how did they become so successful.
This is just a question of craft. What's your favorite art medium, and what is your artistic process when you do your art?
Um, my favorite medium is actually drawing, just because
Oh,
I had this uh, past with it, drawing games with my brother, and
yeah.
so I still love figure drawing, which I try to do every now and then. But my process is a little bit different because it's more digital. So I use a lot
Oh,
of digital processes, but it's sort of a blending of digital and traditional medium. So I'll start with a photograph, and then I'll digitally manipulate it, and then
yeah.
I'll print out uh, different versions on rice paper. And so I
Oh,
have multiple versions of the same image that I'll then draw on, paint on. Sorry, not drawn, just paint on it. And so I have all these different variations of the same image that I then rescan it back into the computer, and
oh,
then cut them up and digitally piece them back together. So it's sort of like a collage back again.
oh,
And then that gets that's not the final product because it then has to become physical in some way. So sometimes that means printing it out on paper, like I have rag paper, like I have for the large portraits in the show. Sometimes that means printing out different versions and um, cutting them up in real life and then collaging them back together. Also, like some of the other smaller works in the show, and then sometimes that means that the form takes on printing it out and then onto different surfaces. Like my one of my series is printing it on plexi, and then I'll add gold leaf on the back.
okay.
So it takes a lot of different mediums. So I like to think of it like it's a synthesis of all these different ways that we've made images. We have photography, we have painting, we have
Oh,
digital printing, and then we have digital uh, processes. So it's sort of taking all of that and merging it into one process, and then that final version, digital version, can be translated into a lot of different medium. So that's where it's been really useful for my public art work. So I'm working on like four different public art projects, and they're all taking different forms, and
oh,
I attribute the the versatility of the digital medium because now it can kind of at least in regards to public art, you can kind of apply that process to a lot of different mediums. Sometimes it becomes sculptural. It
yeah.
translates into something sculptural. Sometimes it's just like an image that gets printed on glass. Like one of them is a parking garage that I'm doing in Dublin. I
Oh,
did a piece for 19th Street Oakland BART station, and that is a light box. So the image got printed onto glass, and then it's backed with light. I'm working on a project in the Tenderloin in San Francisco for an apartment building, and that's being my artwork's being translated into plaster and being applied to the exterior of the building. So working digitally really helps uh, provide outlets for different ways of putting your artwork in different forms.
oh, cool.
Exciting, Philip.
When you do your public art, do you worry about weather? I mean,
Yeah, that is definitely a concern that you have to take into account for any public artwork, and so that's why you have to research and find out what are the viable options for public art, and then you apply your artwork to that medium that becomes um, archival, that becomes weatherproof. So you just kind of have to work within the parameters of the location. So if it's outdoors or it's indoors, then you have different options that are available to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Tanya.
This is fabulous. I love it, Phillips. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, how about you, Tanya? Do you have a favorite medium, and what's your process when you do your art?
Thank you for that question. I'm a traditional artist. I love canvas. I was trained, when you go to school, you learn drawing and then you learn all the basic, every year there, whatever the
Yeah.
process is. But then I was trained in oil paints, and that time there was no acrylic. Acrylic wasn't discovered. I got discovered when I came to the United States. So I love acrylic now because I can turn into oil paint, I can turn into watercolor, I can turn into acrylic. It's easy to move, it's easy. Cleanup is better, less chemicals. So I still love the sound of the canvas, the brush strokes. When I paint such a large canvas, something sound like when the brush hits, like, because when I'm painting, I'm really painting, so I'm not in anywhere else, and the sound, it sounds like I'm making a drum sound with the brush. But right now I'm doing digital art,
Oh,
so I am working on Procreate, because I love
oh,
figure drawing. I'm always sketching. As an artist, when as a true artist, you really draw with your hands and you really do drawings because the imagination starts with your drawing. And sometimes I don't even draw on a canvas and I start painting. But we always have a sketchbook. I have many, many sketchbooks where I label them and year by year, and I love to draw. And then I use, right now working on two different series in my studio, and I got one I'll finish the drawing and then I'll start painting.
oh, okay. I'm curious, Tanya. You talked about how you love hearing the brush on canvas. It sounds like there's a sort of sensual quality where the creating art, it captures all five senses. Is that something
Mhm.
is that part
Absolutely.
of what you love
Yeah.
about it, I
Like
guess?
touch, taste. Taste is the smell of the paint, a little bit. That's the taste and the
Yeah.
sound. So yes, all my five senses are alive, and I'm a meditator. So I was trained in Vipassana meditation, and then Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm done the Zen Buddhist training with him, through him. So I'm
Mhm.
a big, deep meditator. To me, meditation is meditation. Meditation is painting is meditation.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this has just popped in my head, but when you both do your art, is there music in the background or is it silent?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Because I sometimes faces my garden and I love to hear the birds and the water fountain, and I just love that nature sound.
Oh,
I
okay.
have some wind chimes, and little breeze comes in, and when I feel like listening, I listen. I don't. When I'm in a creation, I don't need any extra, bells and whistles.
Yeah, I
That's
think
it.
I definitely prefer music when I'm making art. But if I have to write about my art or anything like that, it has to be dead silent because I need to hear my thoughts.
Oh,
But uh, I loved what Tanya was saying about the tactile quality of painting. I do miss it. I miss drawing. I miss painting because sometimes when you're working digitally, it becomes really, you know, you're disconnected from the artwork. You're seeing it and you're sort of working with it and manipulating it, but it doesn't have that same sort of physicality that drawing and painting has. So I do miss that, and that's why sometimes I'll still go to drawing workshops just to still have that tactile quality of art. So I have to get my fix in that way.
oh, but Tanya mentioned she uses Procreate. Are you using Photoshop? I don't remember if you mentioned that. Or...
Yeah, I use Photoshop. I also use Procreate. It's a great tool to sketch out ideas. To sometimes I'll just make scribbles and marks in Procreate, and then I bring that into Photoshop so that it sort of captures still my hand, but then applies it to the digital uh, processes or as another element in some of my collages.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm similar to you when I'm thinking about sketching an idea, it has to be quiet. But once I'm once I get the drawing down and then painting and stuff, yeah, I just music, TV as a background. But I like your idea of chimes and wind. That seems a lot more peaceful. Yeah. So I'm curious. Now both of you, now Tanya, you're Indian American. And you've mentioned how the part you in some of your artwork you've dealt with the partition, right? And Philip, you're Vietnamese American. How has your Asian American identity influenced both of your art?
uh, the in a very deep ways, because mine is in a tragic way. Being I'm very comfortable being Indian, and was born in India and raised in U.S. Being after coming from a divorce, I left a very abusive marriage and got my two children out of that. So my community shunned me. They have nothing to do with me and my children. And this happened in 91, and I'm still struggling to fit in. I do not fit in. They do not support me there. It's very, very sad. They say cruel words, things on my face. Why you paint? Why you tell your story? Because they look bad in this. So my whole genre of painting is, which I didn't receive from them. So instead of blaming them and saying them, you guys are such a narrow-minded people. Please wake up. I'm a human being too. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a mother. And you're not support. I don't need your support, but be kind to me. So the painting Whisper, or the second painting, You Are Not Alone, My Friend. Did you see this one woman's eyes are open and rest three of them, the eyes are shut, and they say, you are not alone, my friend. I am alone, basically, in this community and society. I don't get heard, I don't get support. And as long as my husband's wealthy and he can write a check and I'm a wealthy wife, I have nothing else to do, I'll paint. And that's when I'm become an artist. I don't have any art background. So it's really, really tragic and sad, and I boldly say this. Indian community is not accepting me, and I don't need their acceptance, but at least don't be cruel to me. You're telling me, why you paint? Why you paint these Indian women? Why you do this? Did I ask you? No.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like your independence is hard won.
Yeah.
You had to go through you had to go through experiences to gain your self-assuredness and stuff. Like, I do political cartoons, and I've been for a while for a Filipino American newspaper, and so my cartoons have been very critical of Rodrigo. Do you know what's going on in the Philippines?
No, I
Rodrigo Duterte was president for 6 years, and he allowed the police to do extrajudicial killings. So he allowed them to kill drug suspects without them going to trial. So 30,000 um, uh, people have gotten killed without going to trial. And he's also unleashed attacks on journalists, lawyers, priests, and stuff. And so but Duterte's popularity during the past 6 years has been around 70, 80% and stuff. And so my cartoons have been going against the tide. I don't know what his popularity is among Filipino Americans, but I do know that so when you talk about being lonely, I think sometimes saying things, political art that focuses on the dark side of a culture, you can be lonely and stuff. So
And I can completely connect with you. Because I have turned off the TV a year ago, so I don't watch news and social media. As I'm very little on social media. I'm just hibernating and I'm just meditating. And, because Silicon Valley is full of Indian educators, they're ruling the valley right now, but they don't, it's only it's all about looking good and who has the money. We all kiss up to each other, we scratch each other's back, and whoever is not to our caliber, we don't acknowledge them. And this is the era I'm seeing and what is going on. In Silicon Valley, a lot of in the companies, how come they're rising faster than, because there's a political force, there is a lot of favoritism going on. And same with the art. In the art world, Indian art is being They don't want to, if I say I speak the truth, they want to know the truth, but really don't want to hear the truth. When you tell them the truth, that this is what's happening with my art, I've been, some of these people, they make sure that my art doesn't get into those Indian events. They go out of their way, but nobody will, take the time to understand or to see the depth and to tell something, what is going on in the Philippines. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And that's my sad part, saying that, listen to me, please. I'm not, I'm telling the truth, and this is the truth, and illustrate the truth, and go towards the truth, and support the real artists.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Phillip, for your Asian American identity, has it been as a critic or as more personal, or
I think we all bring our experiences into our artwork, our lived experiences. And, what growing up, I, was surrounded by Asian art. It's in my grandma's house and whenever we'd visit family friends, we'd have, brush paintings around and mother of pearl pieces and sculptures. And those were sort of the types of art that I saw first before I saw art in museums and galleries even. So I think they have a definite influence in my artwork, and you can see it in some of my other series. And when I was younger, being a child of immigrants, I sort of didn't want to be an immigrant. I wanted to assimilate, wanted to be very American. And these days, as I grow older, I've come to embrace and accept my Asian heritage and want to make that more of an influence in my work, where before I sort of didn't want that. And so I'm kind of coming full circle to this place where I embrace my Asian heritage.
Oh, cool. I had a similar journey too, in the sense that I was raised in Navy bases. My dad was in the Navy, and I didn't really meet a lot of Filipino Americans and Asian Americans until my dad retired, and we lived among civilians and stuff. So it took me a while to to love both my Asian heritage, but love to be American too. I used to think it had to be either or, but then I realized it doesn't have to be either or. You can love both stuff.
Very
So
well said.
I don't know. Am I describing a similar thing with you? Or
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. Was that with you too, Tanya?
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So okay. Well, okay. In our group art exhibition and stuff, some of the artwork in the group art exhibition with the other artists is more politically driven, and some of it's more personal and inward driven, right? Tanya, you already mentioned how with your art, a lot of your art, your partition series, and in your website, you have a section devoted to your social realism art that that is more political and stuff. And Phillip, I looked in your gallery or in your website, and you have something about domestic politics where you have like pillowcases, prints. You have a really cool mug that I'm probably going to get later and stuff. But that touches upon politics too. And you mentioned earlier in your talk that you do want to touch upon environmental issues as well. Now, for both of you, you know, I think Tanya, you mentioned a little bit about it, but what motivates your art? Is it political, personal, or some combination of both? So for me, I push all of I direct my political stuff towards my cartoons, but my fine art is more personal and stuff. So I have a dividing line between my cartoons and my fine art. For both of you, um, how do you handle that and stuff?
I think what is, since we live in a Silicon Valley, everybody look up to us, and whatever we are doing is become a good message, or a political message. I'm not focusing towards political. What I'm saying is, I'm not a feminist. I'm a womanist. That if I'm a female, then this is what is other female. Like the abortion rights. What is 50 years we went back. So my paintings say women don't go back. So it's just becomes the subject matter. I'm just trying to educate and trying to the people who hold power. If somebody could hear us and not, we don't know what is goes behind those doors, what politically, what is their motive behind taking abortion rights away, or putting women back where they, were 50 years ago, or climate change, or anything, any of the stuff, we are affected by that.
Yeah.
So in the Silicon Valley, the abuse and I'd never worked in a corporate world. And what's going on, we are all affected with living right next to Google. I'm affected with their traffic, and my home price went triple, 4 times. It's just not, this is not acceptable to me. Where, I've been here 40 years. This is for the next generation. I'm thinking about the 7th generation. What are we doing? I'm a docent for the Los Altos History Museum and the Orchard and the Historic House. J. Gilbert Smith left his orchard for the city so the apricot orchard would grow. But politically, somebody wants to remove that orchard. Somebody wants to put a plaque. Somebody wants to. So this is awful. This is really when I'm part of that. And there was a stump festival, and I worked with the children. We did poems. I wrote poems coming from the dead trees. We lost 100 trees from last winter. So these children had to read my poems and write a message for the dead tree on a ribbon.
Oh.
So this is it. I don't consider as a political. I just awareness. I will use my art as awareness. That you see my face, you see me well groomed, well educated, well spoken, but you don't know the suffering and the bruises and then what the society is doing to you and the human beings are doing to you. Yeah. And that does not makes me angry or bitter. I'm still going to be expressive and telling the truth and just show. When I pass away, somebody will say, oh my gosh, this Indian American came and lived in the Bay Area. Look at her story. And then they'll recognize while I'm gone, but nobody recognizes while I'm living.
Oh, Tanya, I'm curious. So would you say that it's not political, but maybe social commentary based on your own personal experiences?
Yes,
is political the wrong word, I guess? Or?
Yeah, yes, I would say awareness. At this moment, what's going on, I'm aware of the abortion rights and about the women's right or whatever is going on. That's my awareness at this current moment. Okay. And I'm having empathy, compassion, and understanding who's dealing with it. Mental illness is another one. The Silicon Valley is suffering with mental illness. The amount of homeless people. I cannot fix that, but I can bring the awareness to it. But I'll maybe put a drop in that huge ocean.
I think for me, like you mentioned, my work tends to skew more political. And I think when I first started doing art as fine art, it was a lot more about sharing or creating art about what was going on inside my head and my heart, using personal experiences to create the artwork. And what I found when I did that was if I put it out there and it didn't sell, it almost became this like reflection of, commodifying your life experiences and your personal feelings and putting it out there. There's almost like this validation or invalidation that happens if the work sells or if it doesn't. And I didn't like that feeling of sharing something and then, feeling like it wasn't valid if I didn't have this transaction of putting my artwork out there and I'm not getting money for it, that it didn't feel valid. So I didn't like that feeling of putting it out there. And conversely, when it did sell, I would almost feel like, well, was that enough? Wasn't this experience worth more than a few $100s, or, you know what I mean? So I sort of started to move away from artwork that was about me and myself and my lived experiences because of that, how I felt about the commodification process. So then I went into more, looking at what was meaningful outside of me. And for that, I started looking at environmental issues because it was things that I'd witnessed firsthand, seeing when I grew up in San Jose, for example, there were a lot of orchards and parks around, and a lot of those are now gone because they're now turned into development. They're now housing or offices, and thinking about what we've lost for what we've gained. Um, that sort of affected me in how I looked at what is really valuable to us now. So I think artists are always drawing on um, what they're witnessing, either outside or inside themselves, and they're sharing that with the world. And both have value because one is telling you about things that are going on in the world that we should be paying attention to. And then conversely, when you're talking about yourself and what you've gone through, that's sharing the human experience. And that's both meaningful in a different way. It helps you spiritually, helps other people look inside themselves and think about how um, the breadth of human experiences and emotions. So it's just, what do I want to make my career out of, and how do I want to support myself, and do I want to make my living, and which is based on money? Do I want that to be about you know um, these experiences that happen inside myself? I don't feel as comfortable with that nowadays, so I'd rather think about like observations about the world at large, and how that is meaningful to other people, rather than making them think about you know
Yeah.
validating my personal lived experiences.
Yeah. It sounds like for both of you, your experiences within the community had an effect. So, like Philip, you talked about how you saw the orchards, you saw the parks gradually disappear in San Jose. Tanya, you talked about how, your experience with Google and the rise in rents and, all of this stuff, and your lived experience with a hostile community has affected your art and you and stuff. Is that sort of a so in, um, so I guess for both of you, and then also your lived-in experience, how Tanya, your experience, um, you know, your when you do artwork of your personal experience, other people who went through similar experiences can relate, I guess. So there seems to be it doesn't have to be either or, but your relationship with the community and your relationship with yourself both play important and intertwined roles in your art. Is that right, or is that wrong?
Correct. Correct. So, just saying that when you do political art, you really are not just doing political, you have the empathy and compassion for justice and peace.
Hmm.
That message is not, is for the people who are unheard. They're not being heard.
Yeah,
What Philip said, look at, he grew up with orchards, and look at the area. This area became such nothing but a greed. This beautiful, beautiful Silicon Valley where we had orchards all over around this area. The beauty we came from California. Look at the climate change. Look at the heat we experience, the rain we experience. The animals are suffering.
yeah,
The human race might end, but the animal will still here. This planet will be destroyed. Whatever in a such form means the human, what are we doing? We're just living for, it's that the competition, the suffering. I see, being owning a salon, I met every walk of life. I've been in the, I started my salon 1988. I started working 1988, right in Mountain View of San Antonio Shopping Center. So I met all kinds of people, the wealthiest and not, in these 40 years, what have happened to the Silicon Valley? My children, I never thought my house was going to, this is going to be like the children who are born and raised here, they will be pushed out of here. The people who lived here, they are pushing out. And there's the new people are just like, who are you? Yeah, we're going to take over. You get out of here. This is our place. This is our way of living. And I see, it's really, really sad.
okay. Well, we have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to ask the last question. But I'm drinking, you're speaking of climate change and stuff. I'm just drinking water because it's a little bit
Me
hot in
too.
here. So,
Yes.
so I don't want to be rude. It's just, it's a little hot in my dad's place. So, but okay. So for the last question that I have, what do you love about art? And why is a gallery like Chopsticks Alley Art Gallery important?
So I'll be short and sweet. I think without art, our culture is finished. Without art, we will be not, I think we will be empty. And Chopstick Alley is a profound place. I'm speechless, I'm wordless to say what Trami is doing, the way she's treating artists, the way the platform, the way she's handling it. I wish other galleries, other platforms can learn from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like with art, it's always about changing the way people see the world. It's not just like the direct reality that we witness with our eyes, our ears, our uh, our hands and our mouth. It's also it's seeing the world through our minds and our hearts. So just changing the way people interpret the world through a different medium, and through metaphors and through textures, and that it's very satisfying in the way that music changes our lives and our perceptions and our mood. It's just a different way to experience the world. And like I mentioned earlier in the beginning with Chopsticks Alley, and why it's so important is because it's giving artists in a different location that is relatively underserved in terms of art and culture in the Bay Area. It's giving them a place to show their work and to be supported, specifically in Asian cultures, which isn't typically as supportive of the arts. So I'm really appreciative of Chopsticks Alley and Trammy.
No. Okay. Well, thank you both. I appreciate Chopsticks Alley Art Gallery too. The only thing I keep calling her Tammy and not Trammy, so I have to, I have to, I want to apologize. I have to apologize. So I think I did that during the reception and stuff. But I want to thank you both. You both are very insightful artists who do important work, and and thank you for for giving me the honor of being in an art exhibition with you both.
Thank you.
What a
Okay.
pleasure. We're just planting a seed that this journey continues. Love to work with Phillip, love to work with Angelo, everybody. Love to work with Trami over and over again. And love to see everybody. I think we're going to be meeting again. It will be really nice.